Hello and welcome back. Had some family in town this past week. My wife's aunt and uncle came over with my mother-in-law, and my wife's aunt and uncle made us this massive prime rib for dinner. Prime rib. Really delicious stuff. Now, if you've been listening to this show for a while or just know me personally, you're probably aware I am not a great cook, not really a grill guy. And I can be a little insecure about it. Like, even Mark Zuckerberg knows about smoking meats, and he's an Android dork lord. I make good chili, which I learned how to do last year. I make good scrambled eggs. I can do bacon, all the breakfast stuff, really. But I'm the furthest thing from a master chef or meatsman, as I'll call it. So it's always a little awkward for me when another man assumes I know my stuff when it comes to grilling, smoking meats, or cooking in general, which unfortunately happens all too often. Men like to assume other men know all the manly things they know, and we like to impress each other with our knowledge of manly things like guns, grilling, girls, and World War II facts. My version of this is probably when I talk to a dude who's not a close friend, like one of my wife's friends' husbands, or a random dad in my neighborhood at the playground. I assume they like sports. So I say things like, hey, you catch the game last night? Man, what a finish. And sometimes it turns out this dude I'm talking to doesn't really mess with sports, and he'll say something like, oh, I actually don't really fuck with the NBA, or whatever. And because I'm a people pleaser who is constantly concerning myself with other people's emotions, I just quickly change the subject so the NARP doesn't feel bad. Because I'm considerate and I'm paying attention. The point is, when I told my wife's uncle, man, this prime rib is amazing, he assumed that because I possess a penis, I must know at least the basics of grilling and or smoking meats, and he was, of course, wrong. He also assumed I would want to know how to replicate this perfect prime rib on my own, and he was, again, incorrect. So he starts dropping all these details on me like, the trick is you get the grill up to 375 and then you add the Monterey steak seasoning mixed with some olive oil. And I responded something like, oh, fuck yeah. So he keeps going. The olive oil helps the seasoning stick so you get this outer crust on the prime rib. It almost tastes like bacon. And I say, of course, that makes sense. I could see that. And in my head, I can obviously somewhat grasp what he's talking about. To a certain extent, but I wouldn't have the slightest idea how to execute on these instructions, so all I can do is smile and nod and say stuff like, hell yeah, brother, because he's happy. This conversation is filling his man tank with joy, and I don't want to ruin that. I don't want to ruin this bonding moment that he thinks is occurring that's actually completely empty for me. I don't want to shit on the vibes by saying, sir, I actually have no fucking idea what you're talking about and don't really care. So I just keep pretending I get it, and this meat knowledge won't be wasted on me when it in fact is completely wasted on me. So he keeps going. He's like, yeah, so you take your tongs and just sort of press them in the middle of that prime rib until you feel it start to toughen just a bit. Poke at the sides a bit. See if the seasoning is crisping yet. And you'll know when it's right. You'll know. And that's when you flip it. Let it cook for a few more minutes, but not too long. Not too long. Then you take it off the grill and let it rest a bit so the juices can settle. And I'm just smiling and nodding and shit. And every time this happens, which again feels like it's at least once a month, like it's a relatively frequent occurrence, whether it's because we go to a barbecue at a neighbor's house and I say something about the fucking chicken, or because my wife's uncle is at my house and they made prime rib, I don't know if it's like because of my like lack of cooking self-esteem and meat self-esteem that and like I'm self-conscious, so I put myself in these situations intentionally, but I want to compliment the people who made the food on the food. I want to be polite and thankful, and it really was perfect prime rib. It really was incredible. Whatever the fuck he did with the crust and the seasoning, it worked, and I'm really happy for him and for me, but I just don't actually care about the details that go into making something like this. So every time this happens, I always start to get paranoid after a few minutes of faking it that they can tell I don't know my meats because I'm not really responding with any detail. I'm just giving vague affirmations like, oh, fuck yeah. I sound like a dude getting a lap dance. And frankly, it is kind of nice, like having somebody explain like a recipe or how they accomplished something in a grilling sense. It's like an ASMR deal for me for some reason. So like I'm good at engaging and pretending I understand and care, but really it's just the vibes. That's what I'm soaking in. I'm energy vampiring the happy pride of this person who actually knows how to cook. Anyway, this type of awkwardness used to kind of eat away at my soul, but now I look at it in a different light. I look at it as a challenge to see just how excited I can get the other dude who's talking meat. Like how long I can keep him meating out and engaged before he realizes I'm a total and complete fraud. And in this case, the conversation was even funnier because it's taking place between me and my wife's uncle. It's taking place in front of my wife and my mother-in-law, who are both fully aware that I have absolutely no idea what that man is saying. But I'm faking it in front of them. So there's two other people within 5 feet of me who know for a fact that I am full of shit, but I can't stop because, again, I don't want to be rude and I genuinely appreciate the food. So just thought I'd share that story for any of the other manly men out there who don't know meat, have to fake it, and try to get, a little bit of information out of every interaction you can with a real meat master, a real grill master. If you get into situations like this, now you know maybe how to handle it like I do, which is not to say it's a good way, but it is my way. So maybe it'll help one of y'all out this weekend, give you a fresh perspective. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Is because, when I think about like what is the essence of masculinity, you could answer this in so many different ways. But when I think about me and my guy friends, we really like to tell jokes to one another.
I've got a few... Vice President J.D. Vance, I've got a few new rituals going for 2025. I'm setting my alarm for 6:30 every morning so I can work on my Lego set. I'm meditating regularly, and I'm getting back into yoga. Whatever you do differently this year, come into your own way with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV, powered by LIV Hydroscience. Liquid IV helps you break the mold with flavors like their new Hydration Multiplier Sugar-Free Raspberry Lemonade, a bright, zero-sugar flavor combining notes of ripe, freshly picked raspberries and citrusy, zesty lemon. Look, a lot of us struggle with drinking enough water every day, and that's why so many people are lugging around these comically large water bottles like the one I have in my hand here. But rather than having to fill this thing up 3 times a day, I just dump one of these little packets of Liquid IV into it so that it tastes 3 times better with 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks and is significantly more hydrating than water alone. Break the mold and own your ritual and try Liquid IV this year. Just 1 stick of Liquid IV in 12 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone, powered by Hydroscience. That's Hydroscience, LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always in non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Embrace your ritual with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code ROSS at checkout. Code ROSS when you check out. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code ROSS, ROSS, at liquidiv.com.
And now, Ross Boland's Animal of the Week.
Our animal of the week is the fairy penguin, otherwise known as the little penguin, blue penguin, or combine those last two into the little blue penguin. As always, I recommend Googling one of the aforementioned titles on your phone and checking out images while I talk about these majestic creatures. You know how there are Australian shepherds And then there are mini Australian Shepherds. And then there are toy Australian Shepherds, like two of my 4 dogs, Bruce and Bella, who are not coincidentally in the studio with me as I speak. Well, the fairy penguin is basically the toy penguin of penguin species. They are the smallest of the 17 penguin species, typically sporting slate blue to black feathers with a white chin and chest. They look fly, but they cannot fly. Flightless, as are all penguins. Flightless. They typically grow to between 12 and 13 inches tall, so just at or over a foot tall, and they weigh around 3.5 pounds. So you could literally pick one up in your hand and just hold it out. Just a tiny little baby toy penguin. It's a toy penguin. It looks like a little stuffed animal penguin you just want to cuddle with all night. The fairy penguin is quite common in most areas of New Zealand and Australia. They live 15 to 20 years, and they rely on burrows and nocturnal lifestyles to avoid predators such as swamp harriers, peregrines, gulls, snakes, rats, and lizards. What the hell kind of lizard eats a penguin? That I don't know, friends. That I don't know. An evil fucking lizard. Evil. No lizard that's a friend of mine. I'll tell you that. But yeah, they dive for food during the day, the fairy penguin does, and it returns to burrows on the shore at dusk, making them the only nocturnal penguin species on land. Those of the Australian lineage will swim together in a large group after dusk and then walk along the shore together to reach their nesting sites, these little burrows where they stay. Penguins together strong. Little penguins are what is known as central place foragers, meaning they will travel distances to forage, but always return to the same nest or colony. They are also a species where both parents are required to raise chicks and alternate foraging trips while the other is guarding and incubating the nest during the post-guard stage. Very progressive, these little penguins. They hunt and grub on small clupioid fish, cephalopods, and crustaceans for which they travel and dive quite extensively, including all the way to the sea floor. As far as threats go, introduced mammalian predators present the greatest terrestrial risk to little penguins and include cats, dogs, rats, and particularly ferrets and stoats. What the hell is a stoat? I'm using Google. It looks like a ferret. It just looks like a different type of ferret. Evil. What cats? Why are cats and dogs messing? These must be wild, untrained, undomesticated cats and dogs. Because what kind of cat or a dog messes with a cute little penguin? I know the answer to that. It's an Australian cat or dog. Australia, where everything is actively trying to kill you, including the ferrets and the stoats. It says significant dog attacks have been recorded at the colony at Little Kaiteriteri Beach. The colony of fairy penguins live there, and there have been a lot of dog attacks. And a suspected stoat or ferret attack at Doctor's Point near Dunedin, New Zealand, claimed the lives of 29 little blue penguins in November of 2014. Who could forget the November of 2014 slaughter at Doctor's Point? Everyone is aware of it in the little penguin community, and fans of fairy penguins all mourn the losses that took place on that terrifying November day back in 2014. I forgot to celebrate the anniversary of this, or acknowledge it, not celebrate it. I wouldn't celebrate it. But 29, a ferret? What the hell, man? New Zealand has got aggressive ferrets? I was completely unaware. You learn something new every day. That's why we do this segment. That's why we do Animal of the Week. Because you learn something. And it's important to keep your mind sharp. It says in the United States, fairy penguins can be seen at the Louisville Zoo, the Bronx Zoo, and the Cincinnati Zoo if you're trying to go see one in captivity. And that's your Animal of the Week, the fairy penguin, a.k.a. the little penguin, a.k.a. the blue penguin, a.k.a. the little blue penguin. And now, I want to give a quick shout out to professional football player and known ginger, Andy Dalton. Andy re-signed with the Carolina Panthers to a new 2-year contract worth $8 million, including $6 million guaranteed, with a max value of $10 million. This is a big deal because Andy, like me, is 37 years old. He's getting up there in age, and he has made over $100 million in NFL contracts now in his career. Now, that's not counting endorsements or investments or any of the other shit he's done. Over $100 million in NFL contracts. And, as everyone knows, I struck him out in high school baseball, which is the main thing many remember him for. So again, congratulations to Andy Dalton on his new contract with the Carolina Panthers. Still strong, still there. Andy Dalton, still in the NFL. Huge. This is a meal. This that I'm holding right here. This is a meal, not a protein shake. Okay? Meet Huel, today's sponsor. That's Huel, the global complete nutrition brand with over 400 million meals sold. Their Black Edition ready to drink, which I've got in my hand, total game changer. A complete meal in a bottle that's high in protein, low in sugar, and packed with all the nutrients your body needs to feel and perform at its best. And right now, new customers can try it for 15% off plus a free gift using my exclusive code Ross. Some mornings for me are obviously more chaotic than others, so I have to get out the door quickly and don't have time to make a smoothie or whip up a breakfast. That's where Huel Black Edition comes in. It's my go-to. Keeps me full, energized, and focused so I can tackle whatever the day throws at me. It's human fuel. Get it? Huel. So if you're one of the people out there that's like, oh no, I don't eat breakfast, I never have time, I don't know how to make stuff, whatever, this is your answer. Their Black Edition ready to drink is a complete meal in a bottle, high in protein, low in sugar, packed with all the nutrients your body needs to perform at its best. Crushed one this morning on my way out of the house, delicious and helpful for your body. And right now, new customers can try it 15% off plus a free gift using my exclusive code Ross. Perfectly balanced meal designed by experts to provide all the nutrients your body needs from a meal, so Huel takes the guesswork out of healthy eating. It's for your most inconvenient meals with no prep, no cooking. Say goodbye to getting hangry and unsatisfying snacks. Just grab a Huel. Instead, they taste so good. Huel shakes actually taste like a milkshake, and they come in delicious chocolate or vanilla. Bonus is they're low in sugar. Lastly, Huel is incredibly affordable with high-protein meals less than $5. It's a budget-friendly option that I am genuinely excited to share with you all in the RBP gang. Don't believe me? Take the leap and join the community of Hueligans with this exclusive offer for new customers of 15% plus a free gift with my exclusive offer at Huel.com/Ross. Code Ross. That's 15% off plus a free gift for new customers using my exclusive code Ross at Huel.com/Ross. Please see our description for the terms and conditions of this deal. Unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel. Nutritionally complete meals in minutes so you can focus on what really matters. Now I'd like to I'd like to take some time to acknowledge how right I was about planes. For years, I have been saying the hubris of man would eventually backfire when it comes to the magic of flight. If God wanted men to fly, he would have given us wings. Alas, he did not. And yet the Wright brothers spit in God's face, cursing the world with the invention of the aeroplane. And after years of me warning the public by sharing scary stories of flight gone wrong on this podcast, airplanes are now falling out of the sky like snowflakes on a cold winter's morn. Everybody is freaking out, man, because seemingly every day there's another disaster with an airplane flipping upside down on the runway and snapping both of its wings off, or crashing into a helicopter, or flying straight into another airplane midair. It's bad out there. Or at least it seems that way. Because here's the shocker. According to CNN, last month, there were actually a record low number of airplane accidents nationwide when combining private and commercial airline flights. Most of the 62 total airplane accidents were on private flights, and that total number was 18 less than the 80 recorded in January of last year, 2024. So, of course, the mainstream media wants you to believe air travel is one of the safest ways to get around. And if you're listening to this podcast on a plane, I apologize, and I will pray for your soul to find its way peacefully to the next life. But I remain steadfastly anti-aircraft. Every time I've ever been on a plane, I look out the window and I think, I'm not supposed to be up here. And now look. Sometimes it feels bad to be right, and this is one of those times, but I was right. In all seriousness, I think it's an important note that this is the way journalism works in this modern age, in 2025. Let me explain it to you. A plane crash occurs. It's a massive disaster. 67 people die because a plane collided with a helicopter. Tragedy, right? Then millions and millions and millions of people turn to the internet and their news stations to get information about that tragedy, and millions of clicks occur online, and millions of eyeballs are glued to screens, and the news companies make a bunch of money as a result of this. Their ratings go up, their ad revenue goes up. Great success for them. So then the editors in charge of what news gets published every day tell their people, hey, plane crashes are super hot right now. Let's do more plane crash news. And suddenly, because of an almost algorithmic effect, and since algorithms are ruining everything else in society, why not the news as well? Suddenly you're seeing news about planes crashing every freaking day, and you're like, fuck that, I'm never getting on an airplane again. And that's what's happening right now. That's what's been occurring for this past really couple weeks consistently. Like every other day, there's another story, and here's what will happen next. Eventually, people will stop being so fixated on plane crashes, and something else will take over the news cycle, and you'll forget all about this shit and move on with your life, and you won't, maybe for a second, next time you get on a plane, you'll think like, well, I hope this one doesn't crash, but frankly, if you're normal like me, you always think that when you get on a plane. I hope this one doesn't crash. This stuff in the news, it just ends up being fear-mongering for profit, to create shareholder value. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's the gist of it. So no, more planes are not crashing than usual. Yes, the January 29th disaster with the helicopter and that plane colliding was the worst in 15 years, and that's why the news stations and websites are so focused on this. But you don't actually need to be any more afraid of flying now than you were when I was regularly including at least one segment on this podcast per episode that made flying on an airplane seem as dangerous as playing Russian roulette. It's fine. It just doesn't. It's really more than anything, this segment is meant to prove a point. That the news and the media and social media do program you to focus on certain things. So in this example, there was a horrible plane crash. It was a big deal. Like 67 people died. A helicopter and an airplane collided and exploded, right? That was a really big deal. But factually, mathematically, statistically, there have actually not been more plane crashes this past month than there were in 2024 in that same time frame. But because the news saw, and because social media saw, and the algorithms saw, holy shit, people really, really like plane crash news, or like is probably not the right word, but are really invested in plane crash news and fascinated by it and interested in it, and they're scared of it, and they're Googling it, and they're searching for it on Instagram, and checking on the stories on Fox and CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Like, as a part of the way this all works, they are then incentivized. The social media platforms are incentivized. The algorithm is incentivized to serve you plane crash news. In the algorithm, it's a little more automatic, but on the news stations, it's really just about eyeballs. It's about ratings. And on the websites, it's really about clicks and ad revenue. And so they're motivated, incentivized to put more of that in front of you. So whereas in January of 2024, they may not have reported on a single one of these plane crashes that occurred. In 2025, now if a plane even has a fucking funny landing or like some serious turbulence, you're going to see a story about it. Because we're fixated on this right now, because the media outlets that we have allowed to take control of our lives do that to us. And it sucks. It really, really sucks. But as someone who has spent a lot of time spreading fear about airplanes, I felt I should do the right thing and come on here today and let you know that statistically, we have had less plane crashes in 2025 than we did in the same first 50 or so days of 2024. It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. Probably. Maybe. I really hope so. When you think about businesses that are incredibly popular, growing like crazy, blowing up with great products, you usually recognize their marketing, their commercials, maybe even their celebrity endorsements. But an often overlooked secret are actually the businesses behind the business, which makes selling and for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business behind the scenes is Shopify, today's sponsor. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. I've used Shopify pretty extensively. It couldn't be easier to understand, even if you've never launched an online store or anything like that before. They make it very, very straightforward. They have great help features and resources on their site that help you do whatever it is you're trying to do. Upgrade your business with Shopify and get the same checkout used by Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/RBP, all lowercase, or it doesn't work. Go to shopify.com/RBP to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/RBP, again, all lowercase. Details in the description of this episode. And now, I have a serious question I need your help answering. What the hell do I do with all these Yeezys? It's time. Like, for real this time, it's time. Excuse me. I can't wait any longer, though. Obviously, we have surpassed the point where wearing shoes designed and created by Kanye West is no longer socially acceptable. The man can't stop praising Hitler. He can't. He can't stop praising Hitler and the Nazis on social media and spreading weird anti-Semitic propaganda. And I already drive a Tesla, so I can't also be wearing Nazi shoes, or that's just simply too much Nazi stuff. Excuse me again. It's too much Nazi stuff. Unfortunately, I own like 30 pairs of Yeezys, the strong majority of which were purchased before Mr. West went off the deep end. I bought one pair of Yeezy foam runners last year, okay? It was a mistake. I thought enough time had passed since the last Nazi outburst, and surely it would never happen again. And I love those things, man. Those are my dad's shoes. You can dump yogurt on them. You could have your dog rub mud on them, and they're fine. You just hose them off like Crocs, but they're stylish. I really liked them, okay? I made a mistake. It was a mistake. I apologize. But what do I do with all these fucking shoes now? What do I do? Simple, obvious answers are resell them to some Nazi. Reselling them will take too much time and work, and I don't want blood money in my bank account. It just feels weird. We're talking 30 pairs of shoes. I don't want to list and photograph and detail 30 different pairs of shoes. If you were saying like, Ross, you could make like 50 grand doing that, then I would do it. But we're talking about like, come on, maybe $3,000 to $5,000 total when it's all said and done. These are all heavily used. They're in great shape, good condition, because I take good care of my shit. But like, no, it's too much work to resell them all, and I'll feel too weird doing it. And I don't want to go that route. Donate them. Another pretty obvious option, right? But if I donate them to like kids in Africa who need shoes, then there are just a bunch of kids in Africa running around with Nazi shoes on their feet, and I don't like those vibes one bit. It just feels weird too. Maybe it's still a good option, but something about it doesn't sit right with me. So do I just have like a large bonfire and throw them all into the flames like the Ring of Power in Lord of the Rings? Will I have the strength to let go? Or will I Gollum myself into the fire as well? Something has to be done. That much I'm sure of. Something has to be done. They're taking up entirely too much space in my closet, and I'm sick of looking at them every day and not being able to wear them. And a lot of the stuff we use on a daily basis was designed by or created by or sold by truly abhorrent human beings. Unfortunately, this is the truth. But I'm just at a point now where, like, first of all, I have a lot of other fairly good shoe options. I'm wearing some, like, 2015 James Hardens on my feet right now. They're still Adidas, which is another conversation entirely. But they're not Yeezys. I've got Jordans. I've got enough good shoes. Some Ultra Boosts. I'll be fine is the point. I don't need these shoes. And somebody else could use them. A lot of other people could use them. But I don't feel right selling them. And I don't really know which route to go donation-wise. I'm not even clear. I used to just donate stuff to Goodwill, right? Goodwill is everywhere. There's one within like a mile of everywhere I've ever lived. But I don't know if that's like good business, if they're good. I don't know shit about Goodwill. I want to put these shoes somewhere, and like morally sound is where I would like to go with this. So if you're somebody who is aware of where to donate Nazi shoes you no longer want, that will actually go to a good cause and a good company that is run correctly, please holler at your boy. If you have a good solution that doesn't involve an illegal bonfire or putting hate speech shoes on the size 10.5 feet of strangers in need, holler at your boy. I need guidance. And I know one of y'all listening knows. DM me or email me or whatever. Please. And thank you. That will do it for today's show. I'll be back next week. And remember, if you want another episode of RBP right now, producer Kade, Orris, and I recorded one that became available on patreon.com/Ross Bolin podcast yesterday. Patreon is where every week we release an ad-free edition of RBP, where the entire conversation, all hour long, is driven by hotline calls from listeners who tell us weird stories or ask us questions or have hypothetical situations they want us to comment on. A lot of humor comes out of this, and some serious conversation as well. And this week's RBP on patreon.com/Ross Bolin podcast was no different. Now, if you're like, I don't know, signing up for another subscription service doesn't seem like a great idea, there's a 7-day free trial available on Patreon. So at the very least, you could sign up for the 7-day free trial if you're sitting at work right now, or maybe you're traveling this weekend. Enjoy a few of those ad-free, hour-long, hotline call-driven episodes on patreon.com/Ross Bolin podcast. And then if it's not for you, or you're like, you know what, I don't need this, you can just cancel before you ever get charged a single penny. It's a 7-day free trial. That's how it works. Now, of course, I would encourage you to access and utilize the 7-day free trial and then stick around as a paid supporter and patron of the official RBP gang on patreon.com/Ross Bolin podcast as a way to support our show. But that's just me. Regardless, the content is there. It is ad-free. It is spectacular. And Kade and I have a blast doing those Patreon episodes every week. So you should know about them. That's all. You should know. I would also ask that you please support our sponsors. That's another great way to support our show and make sure our show continues to exist. Today we had 3, liquidiv.com, code Ross to get 20% off your first order, and Huel.com/Ross, code Ross for 15% off plus a free gift for new customers. And we also had Shopify.com/RBP, where you can sign up for your $1 per month trial period at Shopify.com/RBP, all lowercase. So support our sponsors, get on Patreon, support RBP, make sure RBP continues to exist into the future. It's pretty straightforward. And I would also say this, my own business and shows aside, if you interact with a content creator or a small media business on a regular basis that you really enjoy and you would be sad if they went away, support those people when they ask you to, when they say we need support for our sponsors, or we've got a Patreon or some other paid subscription, or they have merchandise you could buy. Again, removing myself from the equation, if you don't support independent media and small media businesses, then they cease to exist. And then we're left with just the same old bullshit mainstream media nonsense that is by and large all fucking terrible at this point. So support independent media, support small businesses. The older I've gotten, the more I've realized how important this is, and the more the world has turned into a dumpster fire of misinformation, the more important I have realized that there are a lot of small companies that do things that I love on a regular basis, mostly online, that I even don't do a good enough job of supporting because I'm focused on my own small business here in Austin. So just wanted to say that on the whole, not just speaking for myself, not speaking just for Bolin Media's shows, all small business, all small media companies in particular. If you like one of them and they're putting out shit that you love and you enjoy every week, make sure you support them, or inevitably, eventually, they will cease to exist. Speaking of which, check out our other shows. We've got Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, hosted by myself and Mr. Barrett Dudley, where right now we have two of the best shows of the last 10 years. Let's be real. Two of the best TV shows in the last 10 years are going at the same time. You've got Severance Season 2 on Apple TV+, and you've got The White Lotus Season 3 on HBO, which you can stream on Max, which no one still understands why they call it that. We are covering both of them on Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. And when I say covering, I mean we are providing a companion podcast for every single episode of those shows that comes out. So, most recently, Severance Episode 6 aired last night, technically today. Friday, February 21st is the official release date, but it comes available Thursday if you didn't know this about Apple TV+. It's always 24 hours early for whatever reason. So Barrett and I will release on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles a companion podcast just for Severance. Now, our Severance coverage has moved over to Patreon, OCC's Patreon, because our bread and butter is HBO shows. And right now, The White Lotus, one of the best shows on HBO and one of the best shows on TV, period, over the last 10 years, is back with Season 3. The Season 3 premiere was this past Sunday, so publicly on all of the public podcast platforms and Oysters, Clams, and Cockles YouTube page, you can now go access and enjoy our companion podcast for The White Lotus Season 3, Episode 1. If you want to continue following along with Severance coverage with us, you got to get on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. We don't have enough sponsors to support two different ad-based shows every week. It's just a matter of business, honestly. So we've got all that going on Oysters, Clams, and Cockles right now. There has never been a better time to be an OCC fan. Appreciate everybody in the RBP gang who also listens to OCC and supports Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. That means a lot to me. I love doing that show. That's the show that got me into podcasting. It was the first one I ever did, the longest running one I've been a part of. We're coming up on 10 years now almost, and next year, 2026, will be 10 years of Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. And you could argue that it's the main reason that Bolin Media even exists. So if you love Severance, if you love The White Lotus, go check out Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. After The White Lotus, we will be covering The Last of Us Season 2. After The Last of Us Season 2, we will be covering A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's going to be a great first half of 2025 television show-wise. So if you think the world is a miserable, rotting corpse and you need a distraction and an escape from that, let Oysters, Clams, and Cockles be your guide. Great TV can get us through this together. Of course, we also have Formula Bone, the finest American-made F1 show on the planet, hosted by Jared J-Bone Borislow. Right now, it's the off-season, but the off-season is almost over. Only a couple more weeks, and then F1 is back in the full swing of things. But in the meantime, J-Bone has created a ton of great off-season content you can enjoy on Formula Bone's YouTube feed, youtube.com/@FormulaBone. You can follow Formula Bone on all the social media platforms to keep up with when J-Bone drops new episodes and new content at Formula Bone on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Reels, or Threads, etc. Formula Bone. If you love F1, you will love Formula Bone. I'm Ross Bolin. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WRBolin. This episode of RBP is presented by Bolin Media. Video of today's show was produced by Kade Orris. Go to youtube.com/@the-Ross-Bolin podcast to enjoy said video. If somebody knows how to eliminate pollen and cedar from the air, maybe there's a helmet I can buy, but I can't take it anymore with the coughing. I'm dying in here. It's not good for a podcaster. It's one of the professional hazards you want to avoid when you talk into a microphone for a living. So I apologize for the coughing today. But thanks for being here. Thanks for enjoying the episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, remember, you are not alone. Peace be with you, and also with you.